Welcome to the Unraveling the Scriptures channel. Ishmael holds a prominent role in sacred texts, particularly in the Judeo-Christian and Islamic traditions. His story is predominantly recorded in the Old Testament of the Bible and the Quran. Ishmael was the firstborn of Abraham and Hagar, the servant of Sarah, Abraham's wife. His journey is closely linked to the divine promise made to Abraham, in which God declares, in Genesis chapter 12, verse 2, that he will make him a great nation, bless him, make his name famous, and make him a blessing. This promise is crucial for understanding the context in which Abraham and Sarah lived and the circumstances that led to the conception of Ishmael as an attempt to fulfill this divine promise. Before we proceed, I invite you to watch the full video and, if you find it relevant, share it with your friends and family who seek knowledge in the Scriptures. Don't forget to leave your like, as I am certain that God will reward generously. That said, enjoy another video from our channel, Why Are Jews and Arabs Always at War? Abraham and Sarah were advanced in age when they received the divine promise, making this promise even more extraordinary due to the improbability of natural conception. Additionally, Sarah had faced sterility since youth, worsening the situation. The inability to conceive was a constant source of sadness and challenge for the couple, and the prolonged wait generated anguish and uncertainty. At times, Abraham and Sarah may have questioned if the promise would be fulfilled and how God could accomplish what seemed impossible in the face of the delay in conceiving a child. Faced with this situation, Sarah suggested to Abraham that he take Hagar as a concubine so that they could have children through her. Abraham agreed, and Hagar became pregnant. At the time Abraham lived, around the second millennium BCE, societies often adopted a nomadic lifestyle, and family ties and marriages were of utmost practical importance. The practice of having a servant to conceive children was a cultural response to pressures to ensure offspring and inheritance. However, impatience, mainly from Sarah, in trying to fulfill the divine promise through human means had disastrous consequences. This resulted in conflicts between Sarah and Hagar, highlighting the adverse consequences of decisions based on impatience and lack of trust in God's plans. The atmosphere became so unbearable that Sarah threatened Hagar with death. Feeling oppressed and displaced, Hagar fled to the desert in search of relief. Finding herself alone in the desert, Hagar faced the uncertainties of the arid environment. It was in this moment of loneliness and distress that an angel of the Lord appeared to her, bringing a comforting and prophetic message. The angel revealed that the son Hagar carried would be called Ishmael and prophesied about his future, describing him as a wild man, yet blessed by God. This divine intervention in the desert not only brought comfort to Hagar but also conferred significant purpose to the son she carried. The name Ishmael, meaning God hears, reflects God's response to Hagar's suffering and circumstances. Thus, Hagar returns to Abraham's house, and later, Ishmael is born. Abraham does not hide his love for Ishmael, his firstborn son. In Genesis, chapter 17, verse 18, Abraham expresses to God the desire for Ishmael to live under his blessing. Concerned about Ishmael's destiny and perhaps eager for God's promise to be fulfilled through him, Abraham asks God to bless him. However, God had specific plans to fulfill his promise of a great nation through Abraham's lineage. In response to Abraham's request, God renews his promise and establishes a specific covenant with him. In Genesis, chapter 17, verses 19 to 21, God tells Abraham that Sarah will give him a son, whom he shall call Isaac. Establishing his covenant with Isaac as a perpetual covenant to be the God of him and his descendants. As for Ishmael, God promises to bless him and make him fruitful, father of 12 princes and of a great nation. God reaffirms his promise of a great nation through Ishmael but emphasizes that the specific covenant for the lineage of the promise would be established through the son Sarah would bear, named Isaac. Some time later, the unlikely happens. God, fulfilling his promise, reveals to Abraham that, despite Sarah's advanced age, she will conceive and bear a son. This news is initially met with disbelief, both by Sarah and Abraham. Upon hearing the announcement, Sarah, already old, internally laughs, as the idea of conceiving in old age seems absurd. This laughter reflects a mixture of surprise, disbelief, and perhaps a touch of resignation in the face of the apparent impossibility of the situation. God, sensing Sarah's laughter, asks why she laughed, highlighting the singularity of the event about to occur, the birth of the son Isaac. The birth of Isaac occurs according to the divine promise. Isaac means laughter, and his name is directly linked to Sarah's initial laughter. The consequences of this event are profound. First, it marks the fulfillment of a divine promise that seemed impossible to human eyes. Sarah's initial disbelief is transformed into realized faith with the birth of Isaac. Additionally, this event has implications on family relations, especially the dynamics between Isaac, Ishmael, Hagar's son, and Sarah. Isaac's arrival increases family tensions, culminating in the expulsion of Hagar and Ishmael, illustrating the complexities resulting from human choices and the fulfillment of divine promises. Sarah's initial rejection and the subsequent expulsion to the desert leave Ishmael and Hagar in a difficult situation. The family dynamic is marked by tensions and feelings of abandonment. Ishmael, as the rejected son, faces issues of identity and belonging. In the desert, Hagar and Ishmael experience loneliness and uncertainty. The Bible highlights Hagar's anguish at seeing her son suffer and Ishmael's struggle to adapt to an unfavorable environment. At one point, Hagar and Ishmael's situation in the desert becomes desperate. Water runs out, and they face the prospect of dying of thirst. In her distress, Hagar places Ishmael under one of the trees and moves away, unable to bear seeing her son perish. At this critical moment, God intervenes. An angel of the Lord calls to Hagar from heaven and asks what the problem is. The angel then tells Hagar not to fear and promises that God has heard Ishmael's cry. He reveals that God will provide a great nation from Ishmael. God then opens Hagar's eyes, and she sees a well of water nearby. Hagar goes to the well, fills the skin with water, and gives Ishmael to drink. This well, miraculously provided by God, saves Hagar and Ishmael's lives in the desert. After the divine intervention that provided water in the desert, Ishmael and Hagar continue to live in the wilderness of Paran. Ishmael grows up and becomes a skilled hunter, adept in bow and arrow, and his mother Hagar arranges an Egyptian marriage for him. It is interesting to note that Ishmael does not completely detach from Abraham, as several sources narrate his visits to his father and Abraham's presence in Ishmael's household. According to the Aramaic translation of Yonatan ben Uzziel, Ishmael's first wife was named Adisha, and it is interesting to note that in Hebrew, Adisha means insensitive. It is said that Abraham went to visit his son, so he took a camel and went there on a long journey from Canaan to the land of Israel to Egypt. Arriving there without revealing his paternal identity, he asked his wife for Ishmael, who reported that he was working in the field with his mother. When asking for water and food after a long journey from Canaan to Egypt, Abraham was refused by Ishmael's wife, indicating that they had nothing to offer. So Abraham left a message, saying that an elderly gentleman had been there and mentioned that the foundations of Ishmael's tent needed repairs. When Ishmael returned and received the message from his wife Adisha, he understood that his father had visited him and that his current wife did not treat visitors well, contrary to what he had learned from Abraham. Thus, Ishmael changed wives, marrying the woman his mother had brought from Egypt. With her, he had many children, whose names are mentioned in the Torah: Nebaioth, the oldest, followed by Kedar, Adbeel, Mibsam, Mishma, Duma, Massa, Hadad, Tema, Jetur, Naphish, and Kedema. Ishmael also visited Abraham for guidance, especially when Hagar, according to Midrash, returned to practicing idolatry after going back to Egypt, forgetting the teachings from Abraham's household. Ishmael found himself torn between two worlds, that of his mother and that of his father. The Bible mentions that Ishmael had 12 sons, considered ancestors of various Arab tribes. The biblical verse dealing with this phase of Ishmael's life, in Genesis, states, "God was with the boy as he grew up, he lived in the wilderness of Paran and became an archer, his mother chose a wife for him from the land of Egypt." This period in Ishmael's life highlights his skill and adaptability for desert life, as well as God's continued blessing upon him. The choice of an Egyptian wife from the Juram tribe also underscores the cultural connections between Ishmael and the surrounding region. The Bible also records the marriage of Isaac's son, Esau, to the daughter of Ishmael. So Esau went to Ishmael's house and took Mahalath, the daughter of Ishmael's son of Abraham, and sister of Nebaioth, to be his wife, in addition to the wives he already had. The biblical account does not offer extensive details about the specific events of Ishmael's adult life. However, there is a later reference mentioning Ishmael alongside Isaac in the context of Abraham's death. Genesis, chapter 25, says, "His sons Isaac and Ishmael buried him in the cave of Machpelah near Mamre, in the field of Ephron son of Zohar the Hittite. It was there that Abraham and his wife Sarah were buried." This passage indicates that, despite the initial challenging circumstances, Ishmael and Isaac, half-brothers, came together to bury their father Abraham. The biblical account mentions Ishmael's death but does not specify the cause. He lived 137 years and was gathered to his people. The term Ishmaelite is used to describe the descendants of Ishmael, who became a great nation, according to the divine promise made to Hagar and Abraham. This descent is often associated with nomadic peoples who inhabited the regions of the desert near the Arabian Peninsula. Thus, the name Ishmael became not only a designation for a specific lineage but also a relatively common and frequently cited name in the Bible. Thank you for watching the video so far. May God bless you, see you soon.